Hey guys, my name is Shai, and I am here with a timeless pick a card reading. Cards number 1, 2, and number 3. I'll have this up for a few moments so you can feel into it if you so desire. Okay, card number 1. The first thing I'm hearing is untapped potential, unrealized potential. And this has something to do with the energy that is stewing and brewing and storming inside of you. Energy not being utilized or allocated is causing toxic energy buildup. It's not that this energy is bad, it's that it's not being utilized, so it becomes stagnant inside of you, and that causes unbalance and disturbance and like dysregulation. So this is about deciding to aim towards a greater potential that you have yet to realize. And this applies no matter how successful or you already are. There is always a higher potential, and it will simultaneously help you resolve some of the this toxic energy buildup, right? Whatever that is for you, that could show as anxiety or restlessness, insomnia, health problems, body image type of things, even lack of satisfaction in relationships. It's because there's this energy stuck and built up inside of you that's not being utilized. That's the best way I can put this. And you don't have to have an overabundance of energy for this to apply, because when you're carrying around this extra stuck energy, it could actually be making you feel tired, and then you get into a loop where you feel like you need to rest, and you don't have enough energy, and you need to get more energy, and you need to rest, and you don't have enough energy, and you need to recover, and you need to get more in order to recover your energy. But you have to break out of the cycle by utilizing the energy that is inside of you in some way, and this will be related to you uncovering and discovering and tapping into your higher potential. So the card is Roots, 8 of Portals. So this is I love the imagery here on this card is this spiraling root, and then I have this tree here on the cloth. This energy translation, right? Energy translation. Is your energy being translated into your feet or into your roots, into your root chakra, into the earth? That might be where, that is, right? If this reading is really going to resonate for you, this is what it's going to be about. Something about all of the spiritual energy that you're constantly receiving and downloading and integrating. It's not fully crossing over into the earth. And I'm actually kind of struggling to come up with the word for this, right? And I think that's even related here, because there's confusion around how to translate your energy into the earth, how to ground the energy, right? We could talk about this as just, it's about grounding, it's about grounding, it's about grounding. But this is really about wanting to move beyond some of the language and concepts you have picked up surrounding grounding, because they might not actually be helping you ground. Because sometimes when we talk about grounding from the spiritual perspective, we talk about it in a very abstract way. And, you can do grounding meditation, which may or may not help you. And there can be this tendency to try to ground and without actually ever grounding, right? To try to ground in an abstract way. It's like trying to ground from your upper chakras. You guys, I can definitely tell you that your upper chakras are alive and well, right? They're open, they're very, very sensitive. And that's almost where part of your problem is, because you're so hypersensitive to the energy that's coming down from above, and you're picking up on it and you're absorbing all of this higher energy. You have this inspiration and spiritual communication, and you're sensitive to all different types of subtle energy, and it's all coming in from the upper chakras, and it needs to be physically grounded, but in a way that is very like connected to your animal body, like connected to Taurus energy, connected to earth energy, connected to physicality, and connected to grounded action. And almost I feel that you might want to look outside of spirituality for the solution here, especially if you have been seeking all of the answers from a spiritual perspective. That's all really good, and I encourage that, but you might need to go outside of the spiritual perspective for this one, right? You might you might turn to science, you might turn to sports, you might turn to business, you might turn to economics, you might turn to socializing. But I mean, if this does need to connect for you in terms of humanity and interpersonal relationships, I would say it's not so much connecting with people in that very this is going to sound funny, but it's not about connecting people with people through that open-hearted spiritual kind of way. Of course, don't mistake me, I'm not saying to close off your heart or to stop being loving or to stop being compassionate, but it's about connecting with people on a more normal level, like doing normal human thing. And that might seem boring or trite, and it might seem like, where would the purpose in that be? Making small talk, talking about the weather, arguing about politics, and really meeting people where they are, and learning from natural and normative human behavior, kind of connecting on that very normal level. So, and Queen of Crystals, so the Queen of Pentacles, the Queen of Earth energy. This, when you really practice this, when you really you need to get outside of your spirituality. I'm not saying that you need to stop being spiritual, or even that you need to put your spirituality on the back burner. I mean, it might feel that way for some. You might find yourself taking a spiritual break, especially if you've been finding that spiritual stuff just isn't resonating the way it used to. It's because you're coming around to the part of the cycle where you need to ground, but you need to ground. I mean, and you are going to be grounding. I don't mean to be too lectury on this. I think it's coming through quite firmly, because that's even a reflection of the energy that you need to connect with, this very firm, it's firm, right? It's firm energy. That's what you're looking to tune into inside of yourself, and then to match, right? It's about matching the energy of the earth, right? Matching the energy of the earth. I mean, there's all kinds, that's complex. What do I mean by that? Because there's lots of energy on the earth, and Gaia's energy can be quite spiritual, but I feel like you have perhaps been connecting with Gaia on a very, very, very soul, that I don't mean to imply that the earth energy is not spiritual, or that earth energy is lacking in soul. That's those of you who've heard me talk a lot, you know that I'm always talking about how this language that we have distinguishing between spiritual energy and then like physical energy is really misleading, because it has this assumption that the physical and earth-based energy is somehow non-spiritual, or that physical energy is somehow less spiritual than non-physical energy. And that is never what I mean to be implying, because that is not at all what I'm into. And that might be part of what you guys are discovering here, discovering the authentic spirituality of earth energy, but discovering it in a way that might not be so abstract. It might not be so invisible. It might not be so airy-fairy. This is about concretizing. And we got the King of Crystals, okay? And we have the King of Crystals. So you got the King and Queen of Crystals. And roots. This is so much earth energy. So kind of want to leave the reading there, actually, because the message for you guys is go outside, go talk to normal humans and do normal human things, and move your body. Take up a sport, right? This could also be finances. Absolutely, this could be finances. This is like, I'm not saying stop doing the abundance energy work, right? You don't need to stop the money meditations. You don't need to stop the abundance code frequencies, however it is that you like to tune into that. But this is the time for, well, what I'm hearing in the background is this is the time for financial gain, but it needs to be connected through some type of action, right? And the thing here is that this will be a longer process, right? Don't overestimate what you can accomplish in a year and underestimate what you can accomplish in 5. So, yeah, so I can see the trouble here, because you're caught up. Like, so for those of you who are still listening, and I'm going to talk about finances for a second here, right? Caught up in the in-between. You're caught up in the in-between, on the one hand, doing the financial energy work, right? Doing the abundance work, however it is that you like to do that. And, trusting the process, trusting the flow, practicing opening up to receive all of those really important, really vital abundance mindset, abundance practices. Those are all very good, but they will only get you part of the way. And then on the other hand, trying to think about grounded action, doing, work, also kind of learning that only gets you part of the way as well. So how do you put these, here you are, right? You're learning to put the masculine and the feminine modes of abundance together. And you're getting really close. This is when you're almost here figuring it out, right? It's this, these cards, it would look like this. You got the feminine on the left, the masculine on the right, and it all going down into the root, into the earth. And I just want to say something here about when you start looking into solving your financial situation, taking it more seriously, there's all of these people offering, courses, masterminds, books, right? Self-help. And they are always offering you a procedure, right? They offer a procedure. Do this to make money. Do this to make money. If you just do this and follow this procedure and do exactly what I did, if you just copy me, then you will fix your finances. I mean, although it is possible that you might get lucky and that kind of thing might work out for you, right? There's always the possibility. You have to follow your path, right? But that's actually my point here, is that you have to follow your own path, your own financial path. And most of the time, those financial procedures, the procedure, it most of the time that's not going to be what works. So unless you have some kind of other resonance going on that makes you suspect that maybe this will work, or maybe you want to try it anyway, it doesn't mean that those things, that following the procedure or following someone else's recommendations on how to fix your finances, it doesn't mean that isn't going to be beneficial for you, because you might learn a lot of things, right? You might pick up ideas, and you might pick up certain skills. And so if you want to, take a course in business or something, or, take someone's mastermind on how to manifest financial abundance, do it from a place of acquiring light codes, or from acquiring skills, or from acquiring ideas, or educating yourself, and getting some of the pieces, and just be aware that, it's like a way of educating yourself. It's not that following that procedure is going to have the exact outcome. And there's something else here about procedures. Just beware of procedures. Some of you may even be following a procedure that worked for you before. If you do X, Y, and Z, you can crack the code and you can make money. So be mindful about your intentions, because you might think about this. There's two types of intentions that are kind of like going on here. On the one hand, there's the intentions on what you want to get, right? What you want to receive, what you want to have. You're probably pretty clear on what you want to get, on what you want to receive, on what you want to have, right? You want to get the money. You want to get the financial freedom. You want to have the experiences. That's what you want to get. How is your clarity on what you want to offer, what you want to contribute, and what you want to develop even? What impact would you like to have? What do you want to offer, and what do you want to contribute? What impact do you want to have? If you want to be 50-50, you want to be 50-50, I mean maybe 60-40, but really consider how much time you spend in one of those modes or the other. You need to have both of those going on, and that is going to be, because the energy can't ground unless you have both of those streams of intentions, right? The energy can't go down into your root and can't ground and can't materialize unless you have both of those streams of intentions. What you want to receive and what you want to contribute. What you want to get and what you want to offer, right? What do you want to offer? What do you want to contribute? And those are your messages. Card number 1. So just there's so much potential here, right? There's so much potential here, and it is through twining those two different streams and strands of intentions that all of this energy will go to ground, and you will feel better in terms of your energetic functioning and your day-to-day experience. And you will also set yourself up for this next level experience of materializing your higher potential. So thank you to group number 1. Okay, card number 2, reading number 2. I'm hearing a blue oracle. Blue oracle. In it, but not of it. With this white tiger and this girl with blue hair. This is the Wheel of Life, so this would be the Wheel of Fortune card. In it, but not of it. So this is referring, to your starseed experience, to your experience as a higher, broader being, as an abstract consciousness. Page of Cups. Two of Wands and Two of Swords. So there's this feeling of being split, but it feels to me like a vertical split, like sliced in half. So sliced in half horizontally, right? But that means the split is between lower and higher, right? Higher and lower. Oh, how am I going to put this into words here? Living simultaneously in the earth realm and in the higher realms. You might resonate with the idea of the vertical twin flame. Okay, that's how some people talk about this, the vertical twin flame, where you are your own twin flame. It is the human self and the higher self, and two halves of one whole. This is an important concept here, two halves of one whole with your own higher self, because it emphasizes that the human self is not poor little old human, poor, small, trapped, victimized little speck of dirt human. This is where the human self and the higher self are equal partners. Okay, the human self and the higher self are equal partners. I can't emphasize that enough. So you want to feel into where you're at with that experience. How is your relationship with yourself? How is your vertical relationship with your own self? Do you experience self-partnership? Some of you here are going to resonate, like Blu-ray starseeds. And honestly, the Blu-ray, it is so much more than the word starseed. It is a you use the Blu-ray to project your higher mind into the human body. So you have the sometimes very confusing capacity to think the thoughts and perceive the visions of your higher consciousness. Just tune into the version of yourself that exists above it all, outside of this universe even, okay? Outside of this universe, outside of this realm, outside of this consensus reality, okay? The version of yourself that exists outside of this consensus reality, and you use the blue ray, literally like a blue beam, a blue laser, and it is on the blue ray bandwidth that but this laser moves in a spiral, okay? Your consciousness spirals down on the blue ray into your own body, and there is something about how your body is sensitive to blue light. And this is a real, actually, let me just say that the sensitivity to blue light is a real physical thing. I mean, I think now we're all familiar with that. We have blue light filters on our phones, right? When you turn on your evening eye comfort view on your phone, has to filter out blue light. You can even get yellow sunglasses that filter out blue light, because the human brain is sensitive to blue light and has various physiological, very real, very measurable, very scientific effects, right? And some bodies, some brains are more hypersensitive to blue light than others, and this can have a whole host of side effects. So, you know, there is a physical component to this as well. And it is worth noting that this your receptivity to the blue ray can actually be a little bit disruptive in your life experience, just like how physically blue light is disruptive to some people physically, is disruptive to some people's physical human brains, because of their sensitivity to it, right? Because of their sensitivity to it. Same thing on the invisible, mystical side of things, where you are hypersensitive to the blue ray of communication, to your own receptivity to your own self, your receptivity to your own higher self, to your capacity to think the thoughts of your own higher mind, your capacity to perceive the visions that are outside of this consensus reality. Even if you're not actually seeing visions, you don't need to be seeing visions. Honestly, it's probably a good thing if you're not seeing visions, because that would be even more overwhelming. None of this is a bad thing. It is just to be understood as a side effect, right? It is one of the things that you grapple with as a particular calibration of human. You have calibrated your soul to maintain its connection to the outer realm, is actually the phrase that comes through here, the outer realm, because it's outside of this consensus reality. But have no fear. You're not doomed to suffer the consequences of this sensitivity for the rest of your life. It is not meant to be like, you know, it's not one of those things where, yeah, this is the side effect of it and you're going to suffer with this for the rest of your life. It is something you actually grow into, and you like acclimate to your own sensitivity to the blue light, right? You're acclimating to your own sensitivity to the blue ray. And that integration process, I mean, it can take years, it can take decades. It is the experience of your life. But one of the things you're actually doing with your human vessel is like acclimating to the way that the blue ray consciousness interacts with Earth. And it's interesting. There's something about how it can be, it causes a lot of vibrations. The way you are sensitive to the blue ray, it means you're kind of capturing it, you're kind of holding it, and it makes you vibrate, right? You're resonating with it. You're resonating with it. I have a very, very like literal, grounded, physical example for you that just happened to me about an hour ago. My furnace came on, and it's this big rattly thing that's in the ceiling above my apartment door. So, you know, it's all humming and blowing and rattling and making a bunch of vibrations go. Of course, normally it's just loud, and most things in the house, it's fine. But I have a music box that was picking up on those vibrations. Okay, it was picking up on those vibrations. I don't know, normally it doesn't, but today it was. Must have been the way it was sitting, must have been the exact way the rattling of the furnace was vibrating the ceiling, and then the walls, and the floor, and then the bookcase, and everything. And then the music box is sitting on top of the bookcase, and it started doing this like particular type of, it was vibrating, right? And it was doing this really high-pitched whine. It was really annoying. It was this high-pitched rattling. And it was just because of the way it was picking up on the vibrations from the furnace. And nothing else in the house was doing that because nothing else was quite being rattled in the same way, right? Like fabric doesn't do that because it's all nice and soft. Everything else, like the table wasn't rattling because the table was too heavy and dense. But there's something about the way that music box is made, the material that it's made of and the way it was sitting, and the things it was sitting on. It was just picking up on the vibrations from the furnace in exactly the right way that it was making this really high-pitched whine, and it was really annoying. And I had to go touch it to stop it from vibrating, and I shifted it a little bit, and then it stopped rattling, and then it stopped vibrating, and then it stopped making that really irritating noise. So a very subtle recalibration made it stop having those side effects. So you're kind of like that music box, right? You're picking up on the vibrations from the Blu-ray, and all of the people around you might not be getting rattled by it because they literally might not be getting rattled by it, right? They're not picking up on those vibrations in the same way, but you are. But it doesn't need to keep on going like that, right? Just a little bit of some stabilization, a little bit of a shift, right? Shifting your posture, hooking into something grounded. It can be as simple as that, right? And then you will no longer have that annoying, high-pitched, whiny side effect, right? It's not personal. Projection. Okay. So when I said whiny just now, I was talking like literally about a high-pitched whining sound, like a annoying noise. I wasn't thinking about, the way people can, how sometimes we can be whiny, as in, we're complaining. But I think there might be an interesting line of inquiry, or a line of thought there. You know how sometimes we all do this, right? We all get into whiny mode, the whiny why me's, where we whine and complain, and we feel, like everything is bad, and we really just need to vent about it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's venting, right? It's venting. We need to let that pressure out somehow, and it's okay. Like something I do with my sister is that we always essentially have space for each other if we need to whine and complain and just feel sorry for ourselves and just throw a pity party. I'll be like, hey, I need to complain. I need to vent about, this stupid stuff that's happening. I can't handle it. And she's like, yeah, like let me have it, right? Let loose. So sometimes you need to let that out. But think about why what leads you into that place in the first place. I feel like if you're getting into that place of the whiny why me's, as a friend of mine dubs it, actually, the whiny why me's, what's rattling you to put you in that place, right? And if you just stabilized your music box a little bit, right, then perhaps the whiny why me's wouldn't be whining anymore, right? That because it's like a vibrational side effect that you're picking up on. In this case, it's all about the Blu-ray. So let me just read this. Many times others project their own pain onto you. This situation is not personal, but rather an opportunity for compassion for yourself and for the other person involved. Stop taking the blame by automatically thinking it's your fault. Have discernment of what you own, but also what isn't your problem, right? It's not personal. It's not personal. This, I feel like, could be read so many different ways. There's so many different ways to interpret this, and I feel like unpacking and parsing out all of the different ways that this could be read would probably be the work of an entire hour. So I'm just going to trust that, you're going to understand this the way you're meant to understand it, and you don't actually need me to do all of that detail work. So I'm just kind of casting around for, what is the point of all of this? That's a question, right? I mean, okay, so like we're talking about, okay, so you extremely tuned into the blue ray. You are a parallel being, if you will, with the version of yourself that is outside of this consensus reality. You are highly tuned into the blue ray, and sometimes there is a vibrational side effect. You get rattled by your own sensitivity to the blue ray or your own blue ray sensitivity. Um, why know of this, right? Why is this coming up? I don't, this feels more like descriptive of who you are rather than there being any point. I mean, maybe that is the point, right? Maybe it is just, maybe the point of this is to describe yourself. Maybe the point of this is to describe your own experience, right? What is it like to be you? What is it like to be you? Have you ever really sat down and described what is it like to be you? There's a feeling here actually that that could be really, really fruitful for someone. Perhaps even that could actually be the solution, right? Describe what is it like to be you? What is your story? And to tell it actually very clearly and very directly. I mean, of course, there's always room and plenty of room, and it's very beautiful to tell your story and to describe your inner experience through, highly abstract and highly symbolic poetry, for example, or through abstract art. And sometimes that can feel like the best way to communicate the truth of your soul through very abstract expression. That's beautiful and wonderful and perfect and awesome. And if you enjoy doing that, then keep doing it. But if you have never kind of sat down and told your story in a very precise, linear way, where you describe in clear language what is it like to be you, if you've never done that, then that might be something that will be quite fruitful for you. And I mean, it will certainly be fruitful internally where, because maybe you've never described yourself to yourself even, and maybe this will help you understand your own self. And especially if you're often looking to systems to help you understand yourself, like, I'm like this, right? I'm like this. I'm really into archetypes. I'm into astrology. I'm into different types of personality systems. Like, you name it, I've researched it. I love all of that kind of stuff. But all of those systems that help you understand the way that people are, and all of the archetypes that help you understand the groups that people can belong to, it's like training wheels, and it's all beating around the bush. So this is kind of like zeroing in on you as a perfectly unique snowflake, you as a perfectly unique individual. Can you describe what it is like to be you? Can you describe it to yourself? And understand that this is in communication and in relationship with your own self, the vertical relationship between self and self. So this can be a completely internal process, like an internally vertical process, like an 8, right? A vertical 8. The process of describing yourself to yourself. This will also help you in your interpersonal relationships, because then you'll be able to you'll have some practice describing yourself to the person who really needs to understand what it is like to be you, or the people, right? To your family, to your significant other, to your dog. Your dog doesn't need the explanation. Your dog is the one who understands you. But that if you have a dog or a cat, right, or a tree, you can describe yourself to these beings. Describe yourself. Okay, so I think that is kind of the message here. Oh, it all ties in with the blue ray of communication, because in describing yourself, you're going to be describing the human self and the higher self, the totality of self. And when you can get that all to come out of your human mouth using your human throat chakra, that is like that right? That will be quite the experience when you actually explain and describe yourself with your words using the blue ray of communication, and wedding that with human speech, the human throat chakra, because the blue ray is captured and transmitted ultimately through the throat chakra, right? That's our blue chakra. That's why it's all about communication. But it's not only about communication, and it's not only about identity. It's not only about personal truth. It is about describing, conveying, articulating, expressing the truth of your soul, the truth of your human identity in a way that allows other embodied humans to see you, to perceive you, to acknowledge you, and to recognize you, right? This is how you get to that place of acknowledgement and being seen. It is by describing what it is like to be you. Infinite ways that you can do that. In this particular moment, it would seem, if this reading is really resonating for you, that even if you have expressed yourself in many, many, many different ways, and all of those ways can be beautiful and amazing and wonderful and perfect and can be things that you can continue doing, if you have not yet described yourself in words, directly, clearly, I would even say without metaphor, as much as you can. This is a difficult task. So if you have not yet done that, if you have not yet answered the question, what is it like to be you, then that is something to tackle, right? Nature's signs. Be receptive to the subtle messages from nature as you go about your day. Nature talks to us continually. We need only open our hearts and minds. Here she is in a blue dress. Got the blue hair, blue dress. You might even consider dressing in blue or carrying blue stones. Ooh, guys, blue sodalite. If you happen to come across some blue sodalite, that would be my personal recommendation. Of course, your relationship to your crystals is very unique, and everybody has a different connection to them. Some people might like lapis lazuli or lapis lazuli. I never know how to pronounce that. But my personal favorite would definitely be blue sodalite. Even just a tiny little piece. I have a piece somewhere, but I actually don't want to touch it, okay? I actually don't want to touch it. It is the only, let me actually finish this by talking about my experience with blue sodalite. I have a little tiny piece of blue sodalite. I didn't think anything of it. I don't even remember how I got it. But it is the only crystal that I am like superstitious about and that I actually don't like to touch because it is so powerful for me. One time for some reason, I put it on top of my head, right? So I put it on my crown. I don't know why I did that. And literally like the next thing I remember is just having this stream of emotional like explosion. I was just crying and I was like dredging up all of this stuff from the past. And I was like explaining this to someone, right? It was all coming out. It was coming out verbally. And I was like, blah, 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 blah. And it was just coming out in this really highly emotional stream. And the point of this was that I realized that I was like the stone, the sodalite had really dislodged a part of my experience that I had never been able to communicate to anyone, that I had never been able to describe. It was a part of my experience that I had just never been able to explain to anyone. I'd never been able to put it into words. I had never fully even allowed myself to think about it. It was a part of my own experience that I had never really even explained to myself because for some reason I felt like I wasn't supposed to think about it. The sodalite, I put it on top of my head, blew that all out of the water. And it was like massive, massive, massive catharsis. I mean, it was kind of ugly, right? I was like bawling and crying and I looked pretty crazy. But it was a really good thing for me to have that release. And, you know, the fact that it was so dramatic meant that like there was a lot to be released, right? And so I was really in the whiny whimies, like I was talking about earlier. So then later on, I was just moving the stone around. And since I touched it, again with this massive purge and this massive release. And, you know, of course, it doesn't do that every time, but it always will bring up the urge for me to verbally express my emotions, and so that's why I'm not even gonna bring out my piece of soda light, because I would have to touch it, and I don't want to touch it because I'm not prepared for that right at this moment, right? So anyway, what is it like to be you? What is it like to be you? That's what I'm going to leave you guys with. So sending you so much love and light. Okay, card number 3. Something to do with water. Water. I was just chugging some water. I got so thirsty. And then I picked up this deck. I actually thought it was a different box. When I picked it up, I saw it was the Healing Waters. So water, water, water. The Radiant Feminine, Priestess of Light Codes. Water, water, water. This is very interesting. I feel like this is a return to the abstract, a return to the feminine. It's interesting, especially I know that some of you would have watched the first 2 readings as well, and they were much more masculine, if you will. They were much more direct, especially the first one was very like grounded, direct, action-oriented. The second one was all about be specific, to describe yourself with your words clearly and concisely, right? This is completely different. This is completely different. This is a return to abstraction. Okay, a return to abstraction. And so, yes, it's still possible for you to watch all 3 of these readings and for have all 3 of them to resonate on different levels. In fact, you know, it's funny, these pick a card readings are kind of based on the idea that different people will pick different readings. But like, I don't typically actually watch all of them when I'm watching a pick a card reading from someone else, but sometimes I do. And sometimes, I know sometimes you guys do, right? You'll watch all of the readings and they can really be one reading, representing different aspects of yourself. And this is, so it's about multiplicity of self, okay? Multiplicity of self. How many different compartments do you have inside of yourself? How many different personalities or personas do you have that do you like to express? I'm actually seeing like water, but like really thick water that's kind of like jello being pressed through a strainer. And it's just kind of like pushing through the strainer. And if you were to look at the underside of the strainer, you'd see that, you know, it's kind of like squishing out, like squishing putty through a sieve, right? It squishes out. Isn't that interesting? Because it's all part of one blob, right? It's all part of one blob. But then when it gets squeezed through the strainer, that separates that blob into little pieces, but it's actually all still connected. Does that image make sense? Are you guys like picturing what are you guys able to picture that? You know, it's just like if I put, you know, imagine like my hand is one blob of energy. It is one thing. And then if I put my hand through the strainer, right? Oh, look, it's been divided up into 4 things, right? My 4 fingers. But of course, these 4 fingers aren't actually separate. They aren't actually separate. They're all part of my hand. They're all part of my own body, right? It's the illusion of separation. It is the illusion of individuation. Really, you know, all 4 of these fingers, yes, they can wiggle around independently and they can be separated and they can do different things, right? This is how you can't play piano without separate fingers. And that is the beauty of separation and individuation. It gives you the capacity to play a piano. You can play 10 notes at a time. And you can run up and down the keyboard, right? That is the beauty of individuating into all of these different humans that we are. And that is why, the first two readings were about like individuation and separation and the process of individuation. And that is so important. And we never want to really lose sight of that, not while we're in our human lives, right? Because we can't flourish and thrive as a human unless we honor and respect our own our own human individuation, right? To be human is to individuate. That is the purpose, at least that in my opinion, right? In my opinion, the way the way it is for me, the way I see it, the purpose, one of the great purposes of human incarnation is to individuate. But of course, equally, it's all one thing. And so you can be looking at this on so many levels, right? You can look at it like your hand, about how your fingers, they're like individuated strands of your own hand, right? Your hand has kind of spawned its 4 or 5 fingers, right? Thumb, we'll include the thumb. And think about yourself, right? You are one self, but you have separated yourself into multiple different personas, multiple different, you can be the old stereotypical example, right? You can be a daughter, a mother, and a wife, and a businesswoman, right? You can be all of those things. Different roles, different personas, right? All the ways you break up and compartmentalize and individualize different aspects of yourself. And then of course there's on the level of, on some level, humanity is a singular blob, right? Humanity is a single organism. Humanity is one entity, one soul, one consciousness. And all 7 billion or however many there are of us right now running around, it's like humanity is a hand with 7 billion fingers, right? We are a blob of consciousness, a one singular blob that has been pushed through a strainer, and that has created the illusion of individuation, the illusion of the self. So we can simultaneously, I would argue, talk about the importance of the experience of individuation, and also the fact that individuation and the individual self is on some level an illusion, right? So there might even be something here of like understanding the importance of your illusions. Understanding the importance of your illusions. Maybe even for somebody here, have you, especially for those of you who are really, 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 really like tuned into that collective way of being, really tuned into unity consciousness, you may sometimes struggle to individuate. Perhaps, is it because deep down in your soul, you know that individuation and separation because you know it is an illusion? And that makes you feel like, what's the point in honoring my individuation? It's just an illusion. Well, perhaps you can honor the illusion. Perhaps you can honor the experience. Lady of the Lake. New beginnings. Something is about to happen. I'm just thinking of a lady of the lake, right? As she rises out of the water. That's another image here. She is essentially, you could see her as a personification of the lake, a personification of the water, right? She rises out of the water. She coalesces herself out of the collective consciousness that is the water, and she rises and she becomes, she takes on the form of a woman, right? She takes on the form of an individual woman. Is it an illusion or is it an experience, right? Perhaps I would say it's both. Mother of the salt waters, passion, wild love, open your heart and let love in. There's also something here about how your experience of individuating has something to do with how you experience and receive love on a human level. So romantic love. This, honestly, it feels like it's kind of leaning romantic, but obviously it doesn't have to be. It can be how you receive love and recognition from anyone in a human body. I don't know how to put my finger on this. It's this feeling I'm sensing here of it feels like individuating will help you receive that love and recognition, but that's like only half of it, right? That's only half of it. There's this other half of the story here. I feel like there's some type of struggle here about how you individuate, how you experience yourself as an individual self, and how you receive love. And I'm really struggling to articulate this. This is honestly, I would say, kind of outside of my experience. So I'm picking it up from you guys, and I don't know how to explain it. I guess think about which do you prefer? Do you prefer to experience individual love from human to human, self to self, or do you prefer to experience like universal love? Just that pure, divine, unconditional love of oneness. Is one of those more natural to you than the other? What is the connection there? Sorry, I'm trying. Let me get some of these cards and see if we can understand this a little better. Okay, let me just read these to you. Are with the shining heart. Close your eyes and tell yourself that you deserve to feel joyful. You can allow joy into your life regardless of the circumstances you currently find yourself in. And this is also, you could replace joy with love, because I was feeling that something about your affinity for oneness and universal consciousness, and like your understanding that we are all one. Does that somehow make you feel like you can't access love from another individual, or that you somehow, like, there's a feeling of undeservedness? I don't understand that, or where that would be coming from. Because obviously that there's no reason ever for you to feel like you don't deserve love. So if that's what you feel, if you're feeling like you don't deserve to receive love, especially from another individual, especially romantic love, then there could never possibly be any reason for that. That's why I find it so confusing. But it seems to be connected to, in some way, your affinity for the universal consciousness. And I don't really understand the connection there. Perhaps I don't need to understand it. Perhaps it doesn't even make sense, right? Because how could it make sense? How could, like, so perhaps, there's some wound there, right? There's a wound there that, I guess, since I don't have that same wound, I'm struggling to understand that perspective. So, but that also means that I can hold, that I have this perspective of whatever this is for you, right? There is truly no reason for it. It truly makes no sense. There could not possibly be any reason for you to be undeserving of receiving love, or for you to be undeserving of experiencing joy, right? That just makes no sense whatsoever. So let me just emphasize, sorry, that was probably kind of loud. I whacked my ring on the table, but there is no possible reason for you to, of course you deserve love. Of course you deserve joy. And, you know, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum between, or the gradient even, because you can locate your consciousness. You can be more tuned into universal consciousness. You can be more tuned into oneness, or you can have a deeper experience of individuation, and you can separate and you can individuate. It doesn't matter where you are on that gradient. That doesn't affect how deserving of love you are. There does seem to be something here where a side effect of something you have experienced, right? Perhaps a wound you have taken on, a side effect. It's a side effect of something you have experienced. Perhaps bringing up these feelings of undeservedness, but there's just no reason for that. So let me continue. Imagine all unwanted thoughts dissolving into light, creating room for new opportunities and possibilities in your life. Yeah, so any feelings of undeservedness, dissolving away. Okay, dissolving away. And let's check out this one. Oh, interesting. We have a 5-pointed star and a 6-pointed star. On the half of his face that is in shadow, and then the half of his face that is in the light, we have this beam of light coming out of the blue eye. Very, 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 very interesting imagery. We have the down here as well. Look deep within your heart and you will feel my love. My love for you is as deep as the ocean. So a message from love there. You are here to receive love both on a universal level and on an individual level, right? Love can be received, perceived, experienced on both levels, universally and individually. So this is interesting. You're meant to experience love on both sides of the divide, on both sides of that sieve, that strainer, right? They're talking about the universal blob, right? The blob of oneness. And then we separate, the veil, the divider. You're meant to experience love on both sides, right? You're meant to receive universal love, like that unconditional universal love, the love that you experience when you're at one with all that is. You're also meant to experience love as an individual, as a human, in a human body. Love for your human body, right? Love for your human body. Both sides, right? Both sides. Love is there equally on both sides. Love is there equally on both sides. I know you might not have experienced that up until now, but it is there. It is there, and it is part of what you are here to experience in this life, okay? It is part of what you are here to experience in this life. And know that love, individual love, that individuated love, the love of you as an individual, it even helps you individuate. There's this really interesting relationship. Like, this is part of what I understand. This is because this is part of my experience, that there's a very interesting way that love and individuation develop together, because the more you love yourself, the more you can individuate. And it can be it can be the most beautiful, helpful, and beneficial thing to have someone who loves you as an individual human and who loves your physical body, because that can allow you to individuate further. And then the more you individuate, the more you love yourself, and even the more that other individuals can love you, right? There can be a snowballing effect, that more love equals more individuation, and more individuation equals more love. And I feel like, for whoever this reading is resonating for, that is perhaps not something you have experienced in this lifetime, right? But that just means that is what is still before you, right? That is what you are still discovering. Wow, isolation with loneliness. There is a tendency to push people away by isolating yourself from uncomfortable situations. Look into new ways to break down the walls to create better ways to connect with others. Don't keep your light to yourself. Open up to share it. So this also can be experienced like on a social level, right? Even on a public level, especially if you, whatever it is that you're here to do, if that involves, connecting with hundreds or thousands or even millions of people, right? This can be on a social level. So the fear facing, right? The fear facing of being seen, facing the fear of showing people who you really are. And really watch out for that tendency to push people away. You might not realize you're doing it. In fact, you probably don't realize you're doing it. I don't mean this isn't about dropping boundaries, right? Because you might have done a lot of work creating firmer boundaries, and that's good, right? There's some people that you simply don't need to hang around with. So that's not what I'm talking about. It's when you feel that, watch out for this very subtle, very insidious thought process inside of your mind that makes you feel like you are somehow wrong. This feeling of wrongness inside of yourself, and the feeling of these other people will somehow be better off without your influence, right? That you might somehow be a bad influence on them, or you might somehow be a negative influence on them. And watch out more specifically for the feeling of the fear of being in tension, right? The fear of being in friction. Even the fear of, conflict, right? Tension, friction, and conflict, or I would say friction to tension to conflict. There is a spectrum there. Friction, tension, conflict. Especially if you're more tuned into universal love, universal consciousness. Now, once we've individuated, now there's the experience of friction, tension, and conflict, right? If you run from friction, tension, and conflict, you are running from connection. You are running from love. You are running, in a way, from yourself. And you're trying to return to unity consciousness. So if you want to experience connection, if you want to experience individuation, if you want to experience your highest potential as a human being in this lifetime, if you want the relationship, if you want satisfying, fulfilling friendships, if you want success, essentially almost anything that you could possibly name as a desire in human life, you must allow for friction, you must allow for tension, and sometimes even allowing for conflict. Allowing yourself to be in the friction, the tension, and sometimes even the conflict, and move through to the other side of it. I promise you that on the other side of the conflict is a resolution, right? The conflict resolves, and it is So it's not exactly through the conflict that you get what you want. It is through the resolution of the conflict that you get what you want. And of course, I could talk at length about evolving our capacity for moving through conflict. And we can get to the point where, we don't have to have these great big conflicts. We can have very, very small conflicts that are just kind of like little blips, and we get through them very quickly and easily. And because it's about getting to the resolution. It's about getting to the resolution of the conflict. But you can't resolve anything unless you allow yourself to be in it. Right? You can't resolve anything unless you allow yourself to be in it. Okay. I feel like one more thing. Okay. This ended up being a lot more than I expected. This ended up being a lot more than I expected. Okay. Acceptance. Okay. Acceptance. It's very red. This makes me think of acceptance of the earth, right? Acceptance of the truth of the physical reality. Okay, bear with me here. I feel like I've totally worn my voice out. I just took a drink. I want to read you this to close. Oh, and I feel like I never even got to dive into. There's one more thing I haven't really got. I got distracted by whatever I got distracted by. This is also about love in between the pieces of yourself, in between the parts of yourself, all of your different personas, all of your different roles that you have, right? All of the different versions of yourself, all of the different personas of self, the multifaceted self. Do all of yourselves, do you experience love in between your own selves? This is like a multifaceted way of looking at self-love, right? It's not just about recursively loving your one self. Do the different versions of yourself get along? Do the different parts of yourself, do your different personas love and respect each other? I can tell you that for me, some of my different personas are in conflict, right? So some of my personas they don't really get along that well, right? And I have internal conflict between different pieces of my own self. So that thing about being in the conflict, being in the friction, tension, and in the conflict and finding the resolution, that could be between different personas of your own self. And it can be between different roles that you have, between being like a parent and being a career person, right? Huge conflict. It can be the conflict of being a sovereign individual and being in a romantic relationship. I've been there. I can say, yes, that can be a big conflict, but you can also completely resolve that to where it seems almost ridiculous to think that why would that have been a conflict? That's, I can say that because that has been my personal journey. All of the different versions of yourself, the version of yourself that might be very serious versus the version of yourself that might be very, carefree, right? You could be very serious and you can be very carefree at the same time. And those parts of yourself, those personas can be in conflict. So all of these different parts of yourself need to learn to get along. They need to learn to love and respect each other and maybe agree to disagree, perhaps. But understanding, yes, that part of yourself deserves to exist and has an important role to play. And so does that part and that part and that part. So think about all of the different parts of your own self, all of your different personas and how they are getting along and how they can send and receive and experience and work through their conflicts. Like how they can send and receive love, work through their conflicts and find resolution, right? Accepting what is a powerful way to step into your own creative force and be a part of what will be. For change is weaving its way within the world of the kitsune, and while there is sadness at the fading of one season, there is a sense of gratitude for all that has been. Instead of lamenting deeply, this kitsune shows us how to gracefully open our hands and let go of what now must pass. This passing is not forever, it is simply for a time. But we are reminded with this card to allow whatever needs to leave now to go, and to stay within the moment of change and appreciate its gifts. Sense the change all around you and allow yourself to become a part of the change. To be gracious and graceful in the acceptance, which is no passive thing, no weakness, and truly not so much a surrender as an acknowledgement of the passing. It is presence and recognition and allowance. This card can be of assistance to those of you who are unable to see the blessings and gifts within the transition, and to those of you who are rushing through the change, hoping rushing will help you cope. Take your time to savor the passing, just as this kitsune is admiring and immersing themselves in the gifts of the autumn maples. Know that the acceptance of this impermanence brings a deep and lasting sweetness, a beauty that can uplift and strengthen you, and a place where you can now decide what it is you will change within yourself to match the change all about you. Take time to make adjustments to your own self. Explore yourself and know what it is that can be enhanced and what can be left behind. There is a harvest to come at the end of this letting go, and the harvest will grant you abundance according to the depth of your own willingness to embrace the cyclic nature of this heavenly life upon earth. Okay, guys, thank you so much and sending you so much love and light. I'll talk to you later. Bye.